Hospitals are supposed to be safe, places where people go when they need help, places where doctors and nurses work to save lives. But hospitals never really sleep, especially during the night shift. The hallways grow quiet, the lights dim, and sometimes strange things start to happen. Tonight, I'm going to share 3 terrifying hospital horror stories. Stories from people who work the night shift, stories about strange patients, and things that happened in hospital rooms that should have been empty. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and listen closely, because these stories all happened inside hospitals. The patient in bed 7. Daniel had worked as a nurse for almost 6 years. Most of that time had been on the night shift, and after a while, you learn something about hospitals. The night shift is different. During the day, hospitals are loud, doctors talking, machines beeping, visitors walking through the halls, but after midnight, everything becomes quiet, too quiet. That night started like any other. Daniel was finishing paperwork at the nurse's station when the ER called upstairs. They were sending up a new patient, male, unidentified, found unconscious outside the hospital. That part was strange. People show up in emergency rooms all the time, but it's rare for someone to be found unconscious right outside the building. The paramedics brought him in just after 1:40 a.m. The man looked like he had been through something terrible. His skin was pale, his clothes were soaked with rain, and there were deep bruises under his eyes. Daniel checked his vitals. Pulse was weak, breathing was shallow, but he was alive. The patient was moved to room 214, bed 7, one of the quietest rooms on the floor. Daniel connected the heart monitor. Beep, beep, beep. Normal rhythm. The man remained unconscious. Daniel finished his charting and stepped into the hallway. The ward was silent. Most of the patients were asleep. Only the faint sound of machines filled the air. Then, at 2:12 a.m., the heart monitor alarm started screaming. Daniel rushed back into the room. The patient's heart rate had suddenly jumped. Beep, beep, beep. Much faster now. Daniel leaned closer. "Sir, can you hear me?" The man didn't move, but something was different. His eyes were open, wide, staring directly at the ceiling. Daniel waved his hand in front of the patient's face. No response. Then the patient whispered something. So quietly Daniel almost didn't hear it. "Don't let them in." Daniel leaned closer. "What did you say?" The patient's lips barely moved. "They're outside." Daniel glanced toward the window. Rain tapped softly against the glass. The parking lot was empty. "Who's outside?" The patient didn't answer. Instead, his eyes slowly shifted toward the door. Daniel followed the gaze. The hallway was empty, just a long stretch of dim lights. Daniel turned back toward the bed. "You're safe here." But suddenly the patient grabbed Daniel's wrist, hard, much stronger than Daniel expected. The man's eyes locked onto his. "You shouldn't have brought me inside." Daniel tried to pull his arm away. "Sir, you were unconscious." The patient slowly shook his head. "You don't understand." His voice sounded dry, almost broken. "They can't enter places like this." Daniel frowned. "Who can't enter?" The patient tightened his grip. "They follow the dying." Daniel felt a chill move down his spine. The patient slowly turned his head toward the hallway again. "They're waiting." Then the hallway lights flickered, once, then again, further down the hall, like something was moving closer. Daniel stepped backward into the room. The patient whispered one final sentence. "They're standing behind you." Daniel slowly turned around. Nothing was there, but the room suddenly felt colder. The heart monitor began slowing. Beep, beep, beep. The patient lay back down. His breathing stopped. Flatline. Daniel stared at the monitor. Dead. Just like that. Everything went quiet again. Then Daniel stepped into the hallway and froze, because wet footprints were appearing on the floor, one by one, leading toward room 214 and stopping right outside the doorway. The morgue drawer. Hospitals are strange places at night, but there is one place most workers try to avoid after midnight: the morgue. Jake worked maintenance at the hospital. He spent most nights fixing small problems: broken lights, leaky pipes, automatic doors that wouldn't close. But sometimes his radio sent him to places most people avoided, like the basement. Around 2:30 a.m., his radio crackled. Maintenance to lower level. Jake picked it up. Yeah, there's a refrigeration alarm going off in the morgue. Jake sighed. On my way. The basement hallway felt colder than the rest of the hospital. Fluorescent lights buzzed above him as he walked. When he reached the morgue doors, the alarm was still sounding. A slow, steady beeping. Jake stepped inside. Rows of stainless steel drawers lined the walls. Each drawer held a body. Jake walked to the refrigeration unit and checked the control panel. Temperature looked normal, but the alarm kept going. Then he noticed something strange. One of the drawers wasn't fully closed. It was open just a few inches. Jake frowned. Someone must have forgotten to shut it. He grabbed the handle and pulled the drawer open. Inside was a man, middle-aged, covered by a white sheet. Jake checked the toe tag. Time of death: 11:47 p.m. Jake pushed the drawer closed. The alarm stopped. Jake turned to leave. Then he heard something behind him. A scraping sound, metal sliding. Jake turned around. The drawer he had just closed was open again, just a few inches. Jake walked back over. That's weird. He pushed the drawer closed again. Harder this time. It clicked shut. Jake waited. Nothing happened. He turned to leave. Then the scraping sound returned, slower this time. Metal sliding on metal. Jake turned around. The drawer was halfway open now. Jake slowly walked back and pulled it open. The sheet was empty. The body was gone. Jake looked around the room. The morgue was empty. No one else was there. Then he heard something behind him, bare feet on tile. Jake turned slowly. At the far end of the room, a man was standing, pale skin, hospital tag still attached to his toe. The same man from the drawer. Jake froze. The man tilted his head, then spoke. You closed the door. Jake felt his hands shaking. What door? The man pointed at the open drawer. Jake looked inside. The drawer seemed deeper than before, much deeper, like it stretched into darkness. Further than the wall should allow, the man whispered. They were following me. The lights flickered, once, twice. Then everything went dark. When security arrived 10 minutes later, the morgue was empty. The body was back inside the drawer, exactly where it should have been. But the security cameras showed something strange. Jake entered the morgue alone, but when he ran out, something walked out behind him, just a few steps back, following him down the hallway. The elevator camera. Marcus worked hospital security. Most of his shift involved watching security cameras. Hospitals have cameras everywhere, hallways, entrances, elevators. Around 3 a.m., the hospital was completely quiet. Marcus sat in the security office watching the monitors. Then one camera caught his attention. The elevator on the 3rd floor had opened, but no one walked out. The doors stayed open for nearly a minute, then closed again. Marcus shrugged. Probably a sensor glitch. Then the elevator opened again. Same floor, same empty hallway. But this time something moved inside, a hospital bed, rolling slowly forward. Marcus leaned closer. There was no one pushing it. The bed rolled halfway out of the elevator, then stopped. Marcus grabbed his radio. Anyone on the third floor? Static. No answer. Marcus kept watching. The camera glitched. Static filled the screen. When the image returned, someone was standing beside the bed. A patient, wearing a hospital gown, standing perfectly still. Marcus frowned. He had checked that floor less than 30 minutes ago. There were no patients there. Marcus grabbed his flashlight and went upstairs. When he reached the hallway, it was empty, no bed, no patient. Marcus sighed. Then his radio crackled. The security guard downstairs sounded nervous. "Marcus, don't move." Marcus froze. "What? You're on the camera." Marcus looked up at the ceiling camera. "What's wrong?" The voice replied slowly. "You're not alone." Marcus slowly turned around. The hallway behind him was empty, but on the monitor downstairs, something had appeared behind him. A hospital bed and someone lying on it, watching him. The call from room 417. Night shift nurses get used to strange calls, patients asking for water, visitors getting lost, monitors going off in empty rooms, but sometimes the calls don't make sense. Lisa had been a nurse for nearly 10 years. Most of that time had been spent working nights, and after a while you start noticing things that day shift nurses rarely experience. Hospitals are different after midnight. The hallways are darker, the elevators move slower, and sometimes the phones ring when no one is calling. That night had been quiet, too quiet. It was just after 3:40 in the morning when the nurse's station phone rang. Lisa picked it up. "Fourth floor nurse's station." For a moment, there was only silence. Then a weak voice spoke. "Help me." Lisa sat up in her chair. "Hello? Which room are you calling from?" The voice sounded dry, like someone who hadn't spoken in a long time. "Room 417. Lisa quickly pulled up the room list. Room 417. Her stomach dropped. That room had been empty for 2 days. "Hello?" she said again. But the line had already gone dead. Lisa looked over at her coworker. "Did someone admit a patient to 417 tonight?" Her coworker shook her head. "No, that room's still closed." Lisa frowned. Maybe someone had transferred a patient without updating the chart. It happens sometimes. Still, something about the call felt wrong. Lisa grabbed a flashlight and started down the hallway. The fourth floor was the quietest part of the hospital. Mostly long-term patients, most of them asleep. The hallway lights buzzed softly above her. When she reached the end of the corridor, she stopped. Room 417 was the last room on the floor. The door was slightly open. Lisa slowly pushed it wider. The room was dark, completely empty. No patient, no machines running, just a hospital bed sitting in the center of the room. Lisa stepped inside. "Hello?" No response. She checked the bathroom. Empty. The closet. Empty. Lisa sighed. Great. She must have misheard the room number. Then she heard it, a slow creaking sound. Behind her. Lisa turned around. The hospital bed had moved. Just a few inches. She stared at it. That's weird. Maybe one of the wheels wasn't locked. Lisa stepped closer to check. Then the room phone rang. Lisa froze. The phone was sitting on the bedside table, ringing loudly. Lisa slowly picked it up. "Hello?" The same weak voice whispered through the receiver. "Why did you come?" Lisa felt her stomach tighten. "You called the nurse's station." "No," the voice whispered. "You called me." Lisa's grip tightened on the phone. "What?" The voice sounded closer now, like it wasn't coming from the phone anymore. "You shouldn't be here." Lisa slowly turned toward the doorway. The hallway outside was empty. Then the voice spoke again, right behind her. "You woke them up?" Lisa spun around. No one was there, but the hospital bed had moved again. Now it was facing the door. Like someone had turned it. Lisa felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. The phone receiver crackled. Then the voice whispered one last sentence. "They're coming down the hallway." At that exact moment, the hallway lights flickered once, then again, further down the corridor, like something was moving toward the room. Lisa ran out into the hallway, but the corridor was empty, completely silent. When security reviewed the cameras later that morning, they saw Lisa run out of room 417. But they also saw something else right before she opened the door. The hospital bed inside the room had already been moving, slowly rolling across the floor, as if someone invisible had just gotten out of it. If you enjoy creepy stories like these, make sure to subscribe to Ember Reads, and remember, some stories are better left untold after midnight, because the next time you walk through a hospital hallway, you might not be alone.